I never thought repainting my own house would cause so much drama. It started as a simple idea, really. My ranch-style home had seen better days. The paint was peeling, faded, and honestly kind of embarrassing. I wanted to give it a fresh look, something that would brighten up the whole block, something subtle but nice. I didn't expect that this small change would turn my quiet neighborhood upside down. Living in a community with an HOA means you have rules. Some people complain about them, but honestly, I never minded. They keep the neighborhood looking nice, and for the most part, everyone follows them without trouble. There are color rules, landscaping rules, even rules about what kind of decorations you can have on your porch. It's all about keeping the place neat and consistent. I understood that when I bought the house, and I was happy to be part of it. Still, I wasn't planning to break any rules. Before I even picked a color, I carefully went over the HOA guidelines. I chose a soft beige with white trim, colors I thought would fit perfectly with the neighborhood style. Nothing loud or flashy. I even double-checked with the HOA's approved color list. Everything seemed fine. But there was one problem I didn't expect: the HOA president. She was the kind of person who took her job very seriously. Maybe too seriously. If you walked around the neighborhood, you could hear whispers about how she was strict, some said even a bit controlling. She liked things done her way. People joked that she was the queen of the HOA, but behind those jokes, many felt uneasy about her power. I had seen her at meetings but never had a personal interaction. So, when I started repainting, I thought nothing of it. I figured if there was an issue, they'd just tell me politely. How wrong I was. The first sign of trouble came a few days after the painters had started. I got a call from the HOA president herself. Her tone was sharp, almost aggressive. She said, "You need to stop immediately. That color is not approved. You're breaking the rules." I was surprised. I told her I'd checked the color list twice. It matched perfectly. I even sent her the color code. She was not convinced. "I don't care about your codes," she snapped. "This is not acceptable. You need to repaint it back to the old color." Her voice was cold, almost threatening. I could feel my heart rate rising. I had done nothing wrong, but here was someone trying to intimidate me. Still, I kept calm. "I followed all the rules," I said gently. "Please check again." She didn't want to listen. The call ended abruptly, and soon after, I started getting notes taped to my door. They were official-looking, warning me of fines if I didn't comply. It felt like an attack on something I had every right to do. But it wasn't just about the paint anymore. The HOA president seemed to be waging a personal war. I heard from neighbors that she had been warning others not to support me. Some even got calls asking them to report any violations they saw at my property. At first, I wondered if I had made a mistake by moving here. I felt trapped, like I was under a microscope. Every brush stroke on my house was being judged. It was stressful. I kept asking myself why she was so upset about a simple paint job. One evening, I sat on my porch, watching the sunset hit my newly painted walls. The color looked perfect, warm, inviting, exactly what I wanted. I thought about all the hard work it took to get this far. The decision to buy this house was one of the best I'd made. But now, it felt like someone wanted to take that away from me. The next day, I decided to find out more. I started asking around quietly. What I learned surprised me. This HOA president wasn't just strict about paint. She was known for clashing with homeowners, for micromanaging, and sometimes abusing her power. People were scared to speak up. But there was more. I found out the HOA president had some serious personal reasons for being so controlling. Rumors said she was trying to sell her own property and wanted the neighborhood to look a certain way to get the best price. Others whispered about old grudges she held. I didn't care about the rumors. What mattered was that I had the right to repaint my home. I just wanted to live peacefully. The tension was growing. Every time I saw the HOA president, she gave me a cold look. When neighbors saw me, some looked away, afraid to get involved. It felt like the whole neighborhood was watching, waiting for the next move. Despite everything, I tried to stay positive. I talked to my family about it. My kids loved the new color. They said it made the house look cheerful and bright. That gave me hope. I told myself, this will blow over. But deep down, I knew this was more than just paint. It was a test of patience and standing up for what's right. One morning, as I was having coffee, I noticed a car parked near my driveway. It was the HOA president's vehicle. She was standing by the sidewalk, staring at my house with a scowl. I walked over cautiously, wondering what she would say this time. To my surprise, she didn't say a word. Instead, she pulled out a folder and started flipping through papers. I asked, "Is there something I can help you with?" She looked up, her eyes sharp. "I'm reviewing the ownership documents. Just making sure everything is in order." I smiled, trying to keep things light. That's smart. It's always good to know the facts. But I wondered, why would she suddenly care about ownership? It felt like she was searching for something. Over the next few days I kept thinking about it. Then an idea came to me, something I hadn't realized before. I remembered that when I bought my house, I had also purchased an additional lot nearby. It was part of the HOA property, a common area that many people didn't even know was privately owned. It was a quiet secret I had kept to myself because I never imagined it would come into play. What if this fact changed everything? I started gathering all the paperwork. The ownership documents, the HOA agreements, everything I could find. As I reviewed them, my confidence grew. Owning that lot meant I had more rights in the HOA than I thought. I wasn't just a homeowner following rules. I was a major part of the community's property. This revelation gave me strength. I knew I could stand up to the president now. But how would she react? I decided to wait. I didn't want to escalate things too quickly. I focused on keeping the house looking great and ignoring the cold stares. Yet, every time I saw the HOA president, I could feel the tension rising. She was watching me closely, probably sensing something was changing. It was strange how a simple act like repainting a house could lead to so much tension, so many emotions. Frustration, fear, anger, but also hope and determination. This wasn't just about paint anymore. It was about respect, fairness, and knowing your worth. The neighborhood looked the same on the outside, but everything had shifted beneath the surface. And I knew the real story was only just beginning. The days after that discovery were intense. I felt like I was walking on a thin line. On one hand, I was excited, almost energized by the idea that I held more power than I thought. On the other hand, I was cautious because the HOA president wasn't someone to underestimate. She had already shown how ruthless she could be, and I wasn't about to let things get out of control. Still, I decided it was time to be bold. I wanted to confront the situation head-on, but with calm and facts. No yelling, no threats. Just truth. So I put together a letter. It wasn't angry or defensive. It was straightforward and polite. I explained my right to repaint the house, attached the color approval documents, and then, most importantly, I included copies of the ownership papers for the additional lot in the HOA. I made sure to point out that I had a legal stake in the community's property. This wasn't just my personal home anymore, it was part of a bigger picture that I helped own. Sending that letter felt like sending a message to a storm. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew I had to be ready. Within a day the response came. But it wasn't the one I expected. The HOA president showed up at my door, visibly upset. Her face was red, her voice shaky with anger as she said, "You think owning a little piece of land gives you the right to break all the rules?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm despite the adrenaline rushing through me. "I'm not breaking any rules," I said softly. "I'm following everything by the book. And I'm hoping we can resolve this without any conflict." She scoffed, then lowered her voice like she was confiding a secret. "You don't know what you're messing with. I've been running this HOA for years. I make sure things stay in line. That lot you own? It doesn't give you control." I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "I'm not trying to take control. I just want fairness. The community belongs to all of us, not just whoever yells the loudest." That seemed to hit a nerve. Her hands clenched into fists. "You'll regret this," she muttered before turning on her heel and walking away. Her reaction surprised me. I had expected stubbornness, maybe some threats, but not that raw anger. It was clear she felt threatened, like I had shaken her carefully built authority. After she left, I felt a strange mix of fear and triumph. The fight was on, but for once I wasn't backing down. The next few days were like walking into a war zone. The HOA president's behavior became more erratic. I started noticing little things. She was sending more formal letters, making accusations about minor violations that didn't make sense. It was like she was digging for anything to use against me. Neighbors started acting differently too. Some avoided me, scared to get involved. Others whispered about what was happening but didn't want to take sides. One afternoon, I ran into an older couple who had lived in the neighborhood for decades. They pulled me aside and said quietly, "You're stirring the pot. She doesn't like when people challenge her." I nodded, appreciating their honesty but feeling isolated. It was hard not to feel alone when the whole community seemed to be holding its breath, waiting to see who would win. But I wasn't alone. I had my family's support, and I reminded myself why I started this in the first place. It wasn't about a paint color or a fight with one person. It was about standing up for my rights and the right of everyone in the community to be treated fairly. One day, I decided to attend the next HOA meeting. It was risky because I knew the president would try to silence me. But I wanted to show the community I wasn't afraid. The room was packed. The president was at the front, already giving orders and dismissing complaints from others. When it was my turn, I stood up and calmly presented my case. I showed my paperwork, explained the ownership of the lot, and asked for fairness and transparency. There was silence at first. Then murmurs started, some nodding, some shaking their heads. The president glared at me, but she couldn't interrupt. After the meeting, a few neighbors came over to thank me. They said they had been scared to speak up, but seeing someone stand firm gave them hope. That night, I felt exhausted but proud. I knew the battle wasn't over, but I was no longer just a quiet homeowner. I was a force to be reckoned with. Still, the president's anger simmered. A few days later, I got a call from the HOA lawyer. They were threatening to take legal action against me. The claim? That repainting without explicit permission violated the community's rules. My heart sank, but I refused to be intimidated. I hired my own lawyer and prepared to fight back. This wasn't just about paint anymore. It was a battle over control, respect, and fairness. What surprised me most was how the community reacted. Some sided with me openly. Others remained quiet, unsure what to believe. But slowly things began to change. People started asking questions, demanding transparency from the HOA board. The president's power was being challenged. Through it all, I learned how important it is to know your rights and stand your ground. I wasn't perfect, I made mistakes and felt overwhelmed at times, but I refused to be bullied. Each day brought new challenges. Letters, emails, sometimes confrontations in person. But also moments of support, unexpected friendships, and a growing sense of justice. The HOA president had lost her calm, her control slipping away. I could see it in the way she avoided me now, how she stopped sending threats and instead tried quieter tactics, like trying to win neighbors back with promises and smiles. But I was ready. I wasn't just defending my house. I was defending the idea that communities should be fair, open, and respectful to everyone. And through it all, I kept reminding myself why I started. Because at the end of the day, this was my home, my neighborhood, and my right. Things shifted in a way I didn't expect. After all the tension and fights, after the letters and the lawyer calls, the neighborhood started to change, quietly but for good. The HOA president, who once seemed untouchable, began to lose her grip. I could see it in the way she walked around, no longer with that same sharp confidence. There was a hesitation in her voice, a weight that wasn't there before. One afternoon, I got a call from a neighbor I barely knew. She sounded nervous but hopeful. "I just wanted to say, thank you," she said softly. "You gave us all the courage to speak up." That moment meant more than I can explain. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everyone in the community feeling like their voice mattered. I started getting more messages like that, from people who had stayed silent for years because they feared the president's wrath. Now things were changing. People were asking questions at meetings, pushing for transparency. They wanted to know how decisions were made and who really held the power. Meanwhile, the president was trying to adjust. At first, she sent more official notices, trying to remind everyone of the rules. But the tone was different, less aggressive, almost like she was trying to save face. I heard from others that she'd been quietly meeting with some board members, trying to keep control where she could. Then came the biggest surprise of all. One day, out of the blue, she called me. My heart raced when I saw her name on my phone. Was this an apology? A threat? I didn't know what to expect. Her voice was different, calmer, almost hesitant. "I want to talk," she said. "We need to find a way to work together." I hesitated but agreed. We arranged to meet at a local cafe, a neutral place far from the neighborhood drama. Sitting across from her, I could see the tension in her eyes. She wasn't the fierce leader I had met months ago. She looked tired, maybe even defeated. We talked for hours, about the paint, the rules, the ownership, and most importantly, about respect. She admitted she had underestimated me and the power I held in the community. She said she wanted to move past the conflict and find common ground. I told her I wanted that too, but only if fairness and honesty were part of the deal. That conversation changed everything. It didn't fix things overnight, but it opened a door that had been slammed shut for too long. From that day on, I noticed a real shift. The HOA board started holding more open meetings, inviting homeowners to speak freely. The president stopped micromanaging every little thing and began listening more. The community, which had felt divided and tense, started to come together. Of course, it wasn't perfect. Old habits died hard and some board members resisted change. But the momentum was there and people were ready for it. As for me, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't had since this all began. The house looked beautiful in its new paint, standing proud and bright. More than that, the neighborhood felt like home again, a place where voices mattered and fairness wasn't just a word but a reality. Looking back, I realized that repainting my ranch was just the beginning of a much bigger story. It was about standing up, knowing your rights, and believing in the power of community. Sometimes, change starts with something small, a brush stroke, a quiet letter, a simple conversation. But that small thing can shake the ground and make a difference no one saw coming.